Welcome back to Law and Crime, everybody. I'm Jesse Weber, joined here by criminal defense attorney Norman Williams. We're breaking down all of our live feeds, and we have a lot to talk about, a lot to cover. You're joining us at a great time. Let's get started. Our focus, though, is going to be on the Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum trial. That's currently live right now. Remember, these are the foster parents who are accused of abusing two girls in their care, ultimately resulting in the death of one of them, 2-year-old Layla Marie Daniel. The defense is continuing on with their case, presenting witnesses that know the Rosenbaums very well, people who said they never observed abuse or any injuries. And they also have some random witnesses, don't they, Norman? We just heard from a male employee, a mailman, who walked by and said, you know, I didn't observe anything.
I like the mailman. The mailman is there every day.
Yeah.
The mailman sees what's going on. The mailman hears what's going on. Mail personnel have relationships with the neighborhood and with the people on their routes, and they hear things. And
He's objective. He's objective. But how important is it to establish that, okay, you can have parade 1,000 witnesses out and say they never saw abuse, but is that enough? Because what really goes on in someone's home? You know, how many people actually see these girls in clothing where they would observe these injuries? And maybe something happened on 1 or 2 days, but not in the totality. How often do they see them?
Right. I think if I had a choice on which charges to beat, I would beat the charges connected to murder. And if I was stuck with the child abuse charges, you know, those sentences are not as lengthy. But here it's the other way around.
Right.
What the defense might be able to show is that, okay, this was just a one-time thing. This wasn't the lead up from months and months and days of abuse.
Sure. No, look, that's a really good point. And look, they're building their case. They have to, after the state really put on a very strong one. And we're going to jump back live. A new witness for the defense has just taken the stand. Let's see her role. Okay, so Norman, again, as you bring out witnesses who know the Rosenbaum, who know these kids, talking about a happy life, talking about no bruises, they've had a lot of witnesses so far testify to this. Is it overkill or is it effective?
No, it has to be effective. It's not overkill, because the prosecution is going to argue that the Rosenbaums were smart enough to not expose the abuse that they were handing off to these young girls to their friends and to other people.
The counter argument to that is, if it's so many people, they're going to hide from all of these different people at all of these different times?
Right, different times of the year, you know, and it looks like, and these witnesses paid attention to these girls, you know, like this witness, she said, you know, she would dress them cutely, or they'd be in sundresses, so I didn't see any bruises or marks such as that, and she describes them being appropriately dressed for the seasons. I mean, this is a strong witness for the defense.
I wonder if it would work for the prosecution or the defense to create a timeline of all of the defense's witnesses and said, okay, they saw them at this point, they saw them at this point. So you have these little pockets of time when this abuse occurred, but it didn't occur at this point. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly, right.
Would that make sense?
It does make sense, and that's the argument. That's how the defense wins.
All right, well, we still are waiting to see more from the defense. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll be live. Welcome back, everybody, live across multiple hearings and courtrooms right now. If you want to follow the Grant Amato trial, that's currently live on lawandcrime.com. Robert Mueller's testimony is about to continue once again up on Capitol Hill. Go to lawandcrime.com to watch that. Our focus is going to be on the Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum case, which again is about to start back up as well. Now, as they wait for the next witness, they again are calling these witnesses friends of the Rosenbaums who know them well. We just heard from Jeremy Head, who's a friend of Jennifer, and he talks about something that we've seen a lot about. The demeanor of Jennifer Rosenbaum when talking when what happened about Layla, and said that she was crying. We heard from Joseph's mother yesterday, who said that she was hysterical when Layla died. We've also heard from other witnesses who described no emotion and that there was this sense of shock, perhaps. How much do you read into a defendant's demeanor at these key events?
Oh, that's important. I think showing emotion is important. Having a flat affect or not showing any emotion is just strange.
Right. It's strange, especially given what we're talking about here. All right, new witness on the stand for the defense. We're going live. Okay, another witness came forward. What did you make of that testimony?
That witness added nothing, in my opinion. I mean, she's just talking as to what she saw and what she observed when the Rosenbaums came to, I guess, apply for benefits, and that the kids were just normal.
I'm not going to be disrespectful here, but are they just going to call any person that ever saw these girls while they were in the care of the Rosenbaums?
I mean, as a defense attorney, if you can put on this many witnesses, put on this much of a defense, this much of a case.
You're not restricted from it.
Right, you're not restricted, but it's something that jurors are not used to seeing. They're not used to seeing defense putting on a heavy case. I mean, but putting on lay people that are going to say, when I was there, I saw nothing, still does not help with what the findings of the medical examiner.
Hey, listen, you got some heavy charges here, so obviously they have heavy witnesses. I do think they are going to call some medical experts. They have to, apparently. It's not just to say there was no one observed any abuse and the children seem happy. They need, in my opinion, and I think, Norman, you would agree, they need someone to come back and say, listen, in my medical opinion, you can have these really awful injuries as a result of life-saving efforts gone wrong. We'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to jump live. Stay tuned. All right, it's one thing to have the mailman testify, but now you have his sister testifying. Your reaction?
I think that she's a great witness for her brother. I think that she's backing up the defense's theory that there was no abuse, but she's really a great witness for her brother.
You know, you and I mentioned something earlier, and I want to bring it up while we have the time. The idea that these injuries sustained by Layla could have been caused by bad CPR done in a sloppy way. The defense tried to put the idea yesterday that in her training in the military, she didn't learn how to do proper CPR. The prosecution was fighting back on that. You had made a great point to me that if that's the case, the prosecution should have done something. Can you explain it?
Yeah, I think that whatever we do to the human body, whether it's intaking of alcohol or drugs or being in a car accident, there are things about the body that tell the story of what happened. And when someone is unable to perform CPR properly, particularly on a child, particularly on an infant, you would expect to see bruising around the chest area. I'm thinking maybe some cracked ribs, fractured ribs. There's definite things that you would see. And I'm surprised that the prosecutor didn't ask the forensic pathologist those exact questions. If improper CPR was done, what would you have expected to see? Just like she asked her, well, if there was choking, what would you expect to see? If there was an obstruction in the airway, what would you expect to see?
That's a good point, because so much of what they're saying is, well, this is not evidence of choking or CPR gone wrong, but what you're saying is show it. Show it. If you perform CPR incorrectly, show what it would look like. Where's the evidence of that?
Right, because it you have a transected liver and pancreas. You have to show the jury that that does not happen when CPR is given improperly. Because if you don't show it, now on a defense, I could drive a truck through that argument.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, look, we're not talking about a full-grown adult. We're talking about a small child. And the force of an adult that's nervous, that's excited, that's upset, trying to revive a child. Maybe it's possible that they could cause this much damage.
Maybe they're waiting for the defense to put on their witnesses to talk about this could have happened, and maybe they'll have a rebuttal expert. Well, unlike the mailman who testified earlier, it's questionable, is this witness objective? And that's the question I have for you, Norman. Here's her son is on trial, okay? Now, she made a statement where she said, look, if I saw abuse, I would have taken them away from I would have taken those kids away from my son and Jennifer. Is she a credible witness?
I think so. I mean, I believe her. I believe her. I mean, she sounds sincere, you know, and I think she would have taken the children from her son and his wife if that's how she felt.
And the emotion, too, does that help the defense or hurt the defense? Because, again, what is she crying about? Is she crying the fact that her son is on trial and, in her opinion, or maybe I don't know her opinion, but the one view is he's wrongfully accused, or is she crying because of what happened to these girls?
I think she's crying because of what happened to the girls. I think it's just the death of a child. It's just something that everybody's going to stop and have an emotional feeling about.
Look, we've heard from a lot of witnesses so far from the defense who've talked about not seeing these injuries, no abuse. But we did hear from a witness earlier on in this trial, Kyle Lambert. She helped care for Millie and Layla. Listen to what she had to say about noticing bruises. I mean, that's a big point right there for the prosecution. You got somebody who's saying she observes these bruises, and then Jennifer said not to say anything.
She was instructed to lie about it, which is typical in abuse situations.
Typical in abuse situations. You have a situation here where could it be argued that Layla was inflicted with more abuse than Millie. I mean, if you want to take the prosecution's case that, yes, there was abuse here, Layla seemed to get more of the brunt of it. Why would that be the case?
That does happen. Sometimes one child is picked over another for a lot of different reasons.
Is it the age? Is it, well, what could it be?
It could be the age, it could be her personality, it could be a lot of things. You know, maybe Layla reminds the mom of herself as a foster child.
And the foster care system's come into question throughout this entire case. You know, that the DFCS, the Division of Family and Children's Services, didn't do enough to protect these girls. What do you think about their role in this trial?
I mean, they've become the poster child for inaction and ineffectiveness.
Right.
I mean, which is what we always say whenever a child dies that's under someone's care in the foster system.
And it was made, they said they didn't do a proper background check of Jennifer Rosenbaum with her maiden name because they would have seen that she's a product of the foster care system, which would have given them pause before they let these children into the home. It's so much about Jennifer, but what about Joseph? That's what we want to talk about right now, because when Mary Rosenbaum, Joseph's mother, came on the stand, she seemed to implicate him. What do you make of that?
Now, I thought that the questioner wasn't as skillful as he needed to be, because you first need to establish how often does she communicate with her son about issues that occur in the household, at work, or wherever. And it's interesting that she said, well, maybe if he witnessed something that Jennifer was doing.
Right.
That's pretty interesting. And that kind of sinks her ship, and it separates her son from liability on some levels, hopefully.
It seemed the fact that she had a way that she was coming into this case, she was brought up by the defense for a reason. Then when she was cross-examined, it almost seemed like she started to realize, oh, I didn't know about that, I didn't know about that, and she learned more of the details of the case. That can't help the defense in any way, can it?
No, because it could have happened and she just didn't know about it. And I think that the average person, or the average man, thinking about how much information he gives to his mom about his own marriage, about his life, and the details that a son would give to a mother, I think a lot of jurors will sit there and go, well, that's not unusual for a son to not communicate things that he feels are negative or things that he doesn't want to hear his mom yell at him about.
Let me ask you this. Let's say Joseph was really never home that much. Let's say he was traveling all the time. Yes, he's the foster care parent for these girls. And let's say Jennifer did inflict this abuse and she did murder this young girl, 2-year-old Layla. Would he still be responsible? I mean, how do you tie him into that? Is it somebody who he had to be there and have some knowledge? I mean, because he is charged with murder, yes. A lesser count, a lesser degree of murder than his wife, and he is charged with these plethora of other charges. What do you think about that?
Right. I mean, he's charged with murder in the second degree, 11 counts of cruelty to children, counts of aggravated assault and battery, which kind of indicates that he's around and he's participating. But if he's not around and he's not participating, and the only thing that he's guilty of is missing the ball, just not seeing that there's something wrong when it's in his face, I mean, that's not necessarily a criminal act. It might be stupidity. We might not like the guy. Right. But it doesn't mean that he should sit in prison because he was a doofus that didn't realize that his wife was abusing the kids. Which is why they need separate representation.
I know.
This is killing me.
It's like law school 101 when you have these conflicting interests. Now, the other side is they're going at it together. They're saying they never abused these girls. They were always taking care of them. They were good parents. She died from choking on a piece of chicken. There's no reason to have separate counsel. That's what they're saying. But we're going to have to see if it ultimately works out. It's time to take a break. When we come back in the next hour, we are going to cover everything here on Law and Crime. Stay tuned. We'll be right back right after this.